Day 20 started by leaving the house and guiding outside the zombie that was waiting in the living room. Instead of following me, he decided to climb through the bedroom window and bring his friend to the massacre. Then I checked the inside of the building from the window facing the living room, only to notice another Zed going through the bedroom. For this reason, I run back to the previous fight location, and after pushing down, I added him to the corpses pile. He was done for in time before I had to address another one that climbed through the window. At this point, the house seems to be clear, but I heard someone behind. It was an enemy that came from the convenience store. Once defeated, another one tried to sneak behind, only to find himself stomped to death. After that, I decided to go through the store, and once inside I found another victim to deal with. Plus, before I could leave, a bonus one decided to stay in my way, only to be trampled over. After taking his watch, I double-checked the dot conditions and decided to bring it over to my base. For this reason, I deposited all the loot I had on me in its trunk, then went back to the previous house to check for some loot. This allowed me to find an empty saucepan in a kitchen cupboard that I can use to cook in the future. While moving to the living room, I had to deal with an intruder that wanted to eat my brain, only to have his own smashed to smithereens. After taking his watch, I continued looting the building. This allowed me to find a comic book in a storage room box. Later, I took the television to be dismantled later. From the same room, I removed the 2 curtains from the broken windows. Moving in the kids' room, I got a spare bucket hat from the cabinet, while from the bedroom a good piece of literature, some long socks, an alarm clock, and a CD. After that, I removed also the curtains from the bedroom and the kids' room. Finally, I got everything useful from this building, and it was time to move to the construction site. Yesterday I left here 1 crate to pick up. I had time to empty that crate, then I moved the television and sheets in my backpack in order to lose the encumbrance moodle. So I could safely address the incoming enemy. He even had a hand fork to give me. Finally, after taking the empty crate, I went to the dot in the convenience store parking. Inside it I found some useless items. I replaced them with my new loot, and later I deposited the trash in the closest corpse. Finally, it was time to sign the last buildings, as completely looted. But before leaving, I remembered that after the helicopter event I lost my double fridge, so I went back inside and dismantled one. But once I brought the first piece to the trunk, I found out that it had not enough space to fit, so I dropped it in front of the vehicle door instead. While doing so, I heard an incoming enemy from the west that I addressed promptly and looted his watch as compensation for my wasted time. Now that my new car is full of loot, I just needed a working battery to drive it back home. For this reason, I decided to walk all the way back to my base. On my way there, I had to face the first enemies past the crossroad. After killing the first and collecting his fillet knife, a larger group emerged from behind the tree, forcing me to retreat. 3 of them was fast not only on their pursuit, but also in getting back up on their feet. After a second attempt to push them down failed, I was forced to get inside the convenience store and use the window to deal with them. The shelf messed up with my combo, and after the whole horde climbed in, I had to retreat further. This time I went in the house that I used to sleep the last night and waited for them behind the kitchen window. I was able to kill only one of them before I had to push down the other 2. Seconds after, I had the time to kill another one with a stomp before I had to push down the 2 that climbed through the window. Once everyone was on the ground, the next weapon hit granted me a new short blunt level. After that, I pushed back to the ground those who was able to stand, and this time they were perfectly lined on top of each other, allowing me to finish them all without any more trouble. I was out of breath, so I took a moment to loot them and lose that moodle. Later, I went in the living room where I heard more zombies' laments. There was 2 waiting for me. One ignored me while the other went for a grab. I dodged it by sprinting, only to turn around and deal with the troublemaker. Finally, the second woke up, but it was too late to help his friend. I was able to take only a belt from one of them before I had to sprint toward the window in order to prevent the zombie that just climbed in through to stand up. After dealing with this last one, I moved to the kids' room so I could rest a little sitting on the ground. I took this opportunity to read the last 2 schematics I had on me, so I could get rid of them and free some weight for loot. Once I was well rested, it was time to leave the house, but before that I had to deal with another unwelcomed guest that at least had a watch for me to loot. Back to the crossroad, I heard more zombies from behind the first 1-story house. Considering I will have to go back here to take the car, I decided to deal with them now. There was only 2 waiting for me there. They were easy to deal with, and to my delight, one of them even had a can opener. Moving to the east closer to my base, I found a new enemy to deal with near the second 1-story house. While after that building, I was chased by 2 fast one. Thankfully, they were spread out, allowing me to easily deal with both of them before looting a belt from one of them. Later, I crossed the road and dealt with a sleeping enemy near a trash bin. Time to loot his belt and more started to reach my location from the south. After killing the 2 fastest one, I moved closer to the third that was wasting my time by moving like a turtle. My impatience allowed a larger group behind him to spot me. At least they were walking at different speeds. This allowed me to easily deal with 3 incoming from the south, followed by 3 from the west. While looting, the rest of the horde tried to outflank me, but I reacted in time to kill the fastest, ignoring the 2 slow. Then one by one, I dealt with the rest of the horde that had 7 extra members left. While looting them for any useful loot, I found also a paring knife. After I was done looting, a new enemy came from the west, only to be dealt with swiftly. The noise attracted more, and after killing 3, I felt out of breath. They kept incoming, and I was starting to become weak, considering that it took 3 stomps to kill the 4th. But I didn't have time to rest that 2 more came from the west. I struggled to push to the ground the first. This gave enough time for the second to reach me before I was done stomping. But combining stomps and weapon swings, I was able to deal with both. After that, I had to address a slow one approaching from the southeast. Doing so forced 3 more to attack me from all directions. I defeated the first in time, before I had to turn around and deal with the second. To my surprise, 1 stomp was enough to kill him, and finally I dealt with the third that was slowly approaching. It felt like they would never end when I noticed a new group incoming from the west. Defeating the next 3 wasn't easy, and I even became exhausted in the process. But finally, after killing the 4th, my surroundings became quiet, allowing me to loot them all. Once I was done, despite still exhausted, I took a risk to go to the east and reach the closest 1-story house, where I was able to sit on the bed and recover my breath. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything left to read. For this reason, I was forced to look at the wall for an hour. While leaving the bedroom, I found a Zed that was guarding the entrance door for me. But hey, I'm broke, so the only way I can pay for his service is with some violence. Later, I continued traveling along the road leading toward my base. On my way there, near the white wrecked car, I had to deal with 2 zombies. Then I finally was able to reach my parking lot with no more obstacles on my way there. Next, I inspected my wrecked dart that, despite in poor conditions, still had a battery with a decent amount of charge left that I uninstalled. The noise I was making attracted the attention of the sheriff. After killing him beside a belt and watch, he even had a pistol with full magazine to give me. After looting him, I went upstairs where I removed the dirty bandage from my wound, only to find out that it was healed. After that, I deposited all the loot I had on me in their corresponding storage units. Once I was done with it, finally I went outside and moved back toward the convenience store. Thanks to the fact that I retraced the same path I used to get back to my base, I had to fight only 1 zombie halfway there. Later I was able to reach the new dart, and after replacing its battery with the one I had on me, I got inside. It was getting late and I became tired, so I had to drive through the off-road back to my base in order to avoid finding more enemies to deal with. But behind the second house, I had to get out and deal with 1 Zed that probably just respawned. At least he had a watch for me to loot. Beside this encounter, my way home was uneventful. Once the dart was perfectly parked, I unloaded its loot and started to move it to my base. While depositing the new stuff in their corresponding storage, I also placed down 3 crates in the corner of the clothing room, while the other 2 in the basement near the metal shelf. Once I was done, I took 1 jawbone war axe to have a spare weapon on me. Later, I got a beer from the fridge that I drank as my reward for the day and finally went to sleep.